So, how many business school students or former business school students are in here? Okay, great. They'll tell you that I like interactive, right? And this is right after lunch, so I'm going to make sure you all don't fall asleep. But this is really one of my favorite workshops to teach. And the reason is that you are going to be astounded by the end of this how easy it is for you to go out and find a market that makes sense to invest in. How many of you, just so I get a good understanding here, how many of you would say, I'm a seasoned real estate investor? Whoa, great. Way to go. Okay, how many of you have started to get into real estate and you want to scale up? Wonderful. And how many of you are like, I want to learn about real estate and get in the game? All right, this is the right crowd. Okay, so we're going to be talking about how to find the right market to buy in. What I'm going to be sharing with you is 4 keys that you can look for in finding the right market to buy in. But I feel like first, you might want to know a little bit about my real estate background. That just kind of hit me like, they have no idea what you do, right? So I'll give you a little bit of that. So I've actually always had a little bit of a passion for real estate. Even way back then when I was describing to you when I was in banking, I liked real estate. I just didn't know what to do and I didn't have the confidence to move forward with it. Now, as I mentioned, I really regret that because at the time, if I would have understood what was happening, I would be a very, very wealthy woman today. However, I've learned to enjoy the journey. And so I want you to know, like, your journey, maybe it started a while ago, but if you want to get into real estate, do you know what? There's no better time to do it than today. Amen? So when we came out here, I was actually a real estate agent. And then I told you I had the home staging company. And that's a whole nother entrepreneurial story. It was really a miracle in how God brought it together. And then I met Billy and Becky, and I started going to the Wealth Builders workshops. And I learned really quickly that there is a lot that I don't know. And Dave and I, we got married in 2019, and he started going to the Wealth Builders workshops with me. So we would go, and we got a little bit, but we didn't get enough to actually grab hold of something until about the 6th workshop. And that was because we just didn't have a lot of tools with Wealth Builders like we're doing now that actually helps you to engraft into the knowledge of the people at Wealth Builders so that you can go further faster. Now, Billy and Becky, they've been married 50 years, and they've been on their real estate journey most of those 50 years. But the beauty of engrafting, and this is biblical, just like we're engrafted, right, because of Jesus, when you engraft yourself into a conference like this, you don't have to start at the level that we've started. You get to start at an elevated level, which is going to bring you to that point of getting in the game and going further, faster, just like an apple tree. When an apple tree is engrafted, they're healthier apples, and you produce fruit so much faster. So we finally decided one day, we were looking at each other in a conference, and it was like this law of leverage, which I'm going to share with you, dropped in us, and we looked at each other, and it's like, did you just get that? And Dave's like, yeah. I'm like, Dave, we got to get moving. And that was not that long ago. That was about 4 years ago. So we started looking at our finances, and we didn't have much. I would be great. I wish I had $500,000, back then that I could invest. But we actually had a very small amount of money. But we knew that if we invested in the right place, all we had to do is get started. And that has definitely been proven to be true. So we probably are up to a total of things that we have done about 11 properties. We're really heavy into vacation rentals right now. We're in a family business. You'll hear about my son Levi, his wife Carly, how we do this. But it all started with what I'm going to be sharing with you today. And in this, I want you all to do a favor, and I want you to get your phone out for me. All right? Now, how many of you already have the Realtor.com app? All right. I know you people, I know what you do in the morning. You wake up and you check the market. That's what we do. So funny. So if you don't have that, if you would get the Realtor.com app, or you could actually go online, Realtor.com, because I want you to apply what I'm going to be sharing with you today. And when you do that, you're actually going to get activated into knowing how to look for a property. Here's the beauty of this. When you know what you're looking for, it literally takes you about 5 minutes to go, yes, or no. You do not have to travel anywhere to analyze a market that's down the road. You can do this in your little fuzzy slippers. And I see some young people here, and I am so excited about that, because usually what happens is, see how techie, they're young, they're very techie. When you leave this, I guarantee you're going to be bringing your parents deals. And you're going to say, look at this, look at this, look at this. We're big on generational wealth and building a family business. Isn't that just, that's like godly, right? And so when we get our young people involved, that just blesses my heart. Okay, so here we go. The market today is a very interesting market. It should be very down in a way when you look at what's happening economically. But something interesting has happened in this market, and that is that the supply of houses are very tight. So even when the interest rates went way up, the values of homes overall have not followed that path. But there is a window of opportunity right now that I want to encourage you to take advantage of. We just did a market update, and if you want to watch that and just kind of geek out on graphs, you can go to the Wealth Builders YouTube channel, and I've got 45 minutes where I take you through graphs to help understand this market. But I want to let you know that in any market, you can invest in real estate. So don't get caught in that, I'm going to wait till rates go down. Oh, I'm going to wait till values go down, or whatever that might be. Today's the day. And when you follow these guidelines, you will be able to find real estate in a market. You make money when you buy, not when you sell. I'll explain that. And there is markets where this is working, okay? So let's get started. There are opportunities out there. Pray, research, and follow the guidelines that you are learning today. So here are the ratios. You guys probably, if you could, maybe take a picture of that. These are the guidelines that at Wealth Builders we teach you to follow to keep you in a safe place in a way with your real estate investing. We've all heard horror stories. Maybe some of us have been through real estate horror stories. But when you follow these guidelines, your success rate, your opportunity to do really well, where you can feel comfortable and confident, goes up exponentially. And I'll take you through how to find each of these, but I'm going to list them so that you've got a context for it. All right, so the first one is you want to look for a property, and this is buy and hold. We'll talk about vacation rentals. I've got a session on that later. I'll touch on it a bit. Flips, we've got a session on that too. Burrs, there's other things that you can look at for real estate. But the meat, you might say, of starting to invest in real estate usually is in this area of buy and holds. Now, when I say buy and holds, what this means is a property that you are looking to get a lease on for a year or longer. It's that, remember that orchard that I was talking about today? This is a green dot that you can put in place, and it's a way for you to get that trifecta that I was sharing. So 1 to 1.5% monthly rate based on purchase price for a buy and hold. An example of that would be if there's a $150,000 home. I want to see in that market, and I'll show you how if I can earn $1,500, okay, in rent, and that's going to pass my first mark. The second one is you want to look at 2 to 4 times median income. That's household median income for the price of a home. What that means is when you go into a market, you can Google, and I'll show you what that looks like, Google household median income in the area. And you want to stay between 2 and 4 times the median income. Who can tell me why that would be important when buying a buy and hold? Exactly. It's one of the ways to mitigate if we see some fluctuation in the market. I know that my home is going to attract the largest segment possible. Now, as you advance and you get more into real estate investing and you learn about the market, there are definitely opportunities in the luxury market. We're actually in a pretty high-end market. I'll share more about that. But I would not have wanted to start there. The next one is you want to have a minimum of $300 cash flow, positive cash flow per door. Okay? Now, what that means is that after I take all my costs, I've got my P&I, which is principal and interest. I've got my insurance. I've got my taxes. I've got my property manager, usually 8 to 10%, and anything else I'm covering on the home. I take that off the gross rent, and I come up with my net cash flow per month. And if you can be at $300 on a single family home, you can do a little less on a duplex or a multifamily. You are going to have enough cushion to ride out any market fluctuations. So when we see markets going up, we see markets going down. I shared with you that I was in banking in 2008 and 2010. What happened to the values of homes? They really went down. And what people do is they sell in a down market out of fear. Now, why would you do that? You saw the graph, it's going to go back up. The other thing people have done, and what we advise you not to do, which is why you're in this class today, is do not buy a property based on appreciation. That's what a lot of people did. They didn't run the calculations during that time, and their cash flow got squeezed, and they were losing money every month, and they dumped the home in a low market. When you keep the $300 cash flow, you can ride out. It doesn't matter. If I've got $300, do I care that my property just dropped $50,000? No. It's not impacting my mortgage payment. It's not impacting my fixed costs. The best thing I can do is ride it out. What we share with you is if you can ride out 2 real estate cycles, you will generally see a very, very nice appreciation. So that's why we do the cash flow, to keep you out of selling in a panic. The fourth one, and again, I'll go through these ratios with you in examples, is a 10 to 20% cash on cash return. This means if you put $30,000 down on a property, you want a net income flow for that year between $3,000 and $6,000. With real estate, there is some risk, right? We know that. There's some risk. Your tenants, things could happen, but real estate being one of the most safe things. So we encourage you that if you're going to put your money into real estate, you need to get a decent return. And remember what I shared this morning. What do you get that 10% appreciation on? Your down payment? No, the entire asset, okay? So these are your 4 things that's going to keep you in the safe zone. So let's dig in a little deeper. Here's what I'd like you to do with your phones. I would like you to locate and determine your potential area that you are interested in. And so we invest down in Cocoa Beach and Vero Beach. We just moved from South Lake. I'm going to show you some things there. So where is the spot that God has called you to, or what are you drawn to? And you might say, we don't know yet. Well, maybe you just go where you live and pull up that information. So when you go into Realtor.com and you enter in the community in the state, it's going to pull up a map for you. And that's exactly what I want you to stay at right now. Now, Zillow is something that you can use as well. I use them both, but for this first step, Realtor.com is much easier for us to locate the area. All right, so you're going to go in that app, enter the location, and then I'd like you to go, just like on the screen here, and enter in the property type. What I would like you to do is enter in single family and click off condo, multifamily, click off all those other ones because I just want us to focus on single family right now. Okay, you following me? Great job. This is what you're going to see. And this is an example of Southlake, Texas. When you look at that map and you start to, you pull your fingers apart a bit. When you start to hone in on there, it's going to show you the prices of the properties that are for sale. So give me some numbers that you're seeing in the market. You'll see here with Southlake, Texas, we've got 2.05 mil, 2.67 mil, 1.15 mil. Oh, there's a deal, 850,000. 1.89 mil. It gives you a good idea of the market that you're going into. And obviously, this is a pretty expensive market. What are some numbers that you're all seeing? Just shout them out. 345, good. 678. 470. 400. 300. 289. 270. 289. Great. Okay, now when you look at that, you get an idea pretty fast of what that market is all about. So I want you to eye this, and I want you to kind of just come up with an average price that you're seeing in your market. That's something you want to lodge in your memory because you're going to use that as we move forward. Now, the next step that I want you to take as you look at this is go into some of the filters, and I want you to click on Hide Contingent and Pending. Okay? And when you do that, the reason, I always want to tell you why I'm asking you to do, otherwise I'm not going to be much help to you. The reason I want you to do that is it's going to give you a really good idea of how brisk that market is. Because if you look back here and you see, I've got a pretty good, number of properties there. And then I clicked on the Hide Pending and Contingent. Look at this. These are the properties that are actually still for sale. So based on that, does this look like a pretty active, brisk market? It does. I'll go back and show you. I know your heads are in your phones, but this is where we were. These are the total on the market in that area. And once I pulled away the contingent and pending, these are the only ones left. So that's helpful for you when you start looking at a market to know what you might be going into. What does this mean when you see something like this? It might potentially mean that I have to move fast, and so I don't lose something if it runs the numbers. It might mean I'm not going to have a lot of negotiation room, but there's no doubt that this market, despite what's happening in the world that we're told, is a very healthy real estate market. Okay, here's the next thing that I want you to look at. I'm going to show you some metrics that are going to mean a lot to you in analyzing. And you'll notice I have an arrow on something called price per square foot. This is one of my favorite metrics because if I take two similar homes, I'm going to be able to compare, wow, this one's at $250 a square foot. This is at $316 a square foot. It's a similar property, similar lot. Which one of those houses do you think I'm going to try to move on the fastest? The 250, right? Because it looks like it's a deal. And we know this just by looking at these numbers. So this one is $316 a square foot. You look around in your market and it gives you a good idea of what to expect. And before you know it, you're actually at that point of understanding and discerning what property might be overpriced and what property actually might be something to pounce on quickly. Now, the next thing I'd like you to do is go back in that same community, and instead of buy, I want you to click on rent. Okay? It's going to give you the same area, the same map, and do you know which one I'm going after here? I'm going after the 1 to 1.5%. Okay? So if you go back in and you see things for rent, how does that look compared to the purchase price? So just to review that metric, if I am looking at spending $300,000 and I want to hit close to that 1%, what type of rent am I looking for? $3,000, right? If it's even in the ballpark. So let's take a look at South Lake and let's see if I want to go any further in this market based on that. Wow. Okay, remember my properties were 2.1 mil, 1.9 mil, 5 million. Lowest one was 850. If I look at these rental rates, I've got my highest one is $10,000, my highest one. So that's probably a monster of a property, and that would work for $1 million property, which we saw almost none. $2,300, $6,500, $8,500, $5,000. This is not looking too good, is it? We're hitting more like 0.5% on this market. Do I want to get in the car, travel down there, and take a look at houses in this market? How long did that take us to look at this market and go, that's not our market? Right? Like 5 minutes, right? And so this saves you so much time and energy, and you can do all of this online before you even move forward to start to look at properties. And it's fun. Can I just tell you those? I know you out there that are on Realtor.com every morning. It's really fun. So I should warn you, this might become a habit. All right. Now, let's go a little further into our metrics. And for these, I like to use Zillow.com. And so I'm sorry to pop you into apps, but this is really the best way for you to start to get familiar with them, is to use them in this environment. So if you go to Zillow.com, there are certain things on Zillow that are very, very helpful. If there is a property that maybe you would like to learn about, just put in your own address or some address. Your first step is to identify a potential property that you're interested in and put that address in the Zillow.com. When you do that, here's some really helpful information that Zillow provides. First of all, in this example, this house is $499,999. This is actually in Pagosa Springs. And at Wealth Builders, we do real estate coaching. Actually, we have a lot of our coaching friends here, we're coaching family. And he wanted to buy a house really bad in Pagosa Springs. So I said, all right, let's get on Zoom and let's look at it. So we pulled this up. This looked like a good potential house. And using that first metric, I said, how much do you think you can get in rent? And you see that it gives you a rent zestimate. Now, it's not perfect, but it is a good guideline. So when we looked at this, I could tell him in no time flat, this is not a good deal for you. Because if we're going to do 1%, we need to be close to $5,000. And this rent zestimate is $1,858. Right there, we knew we needed to move on. And this is another part of South Lake. These were if you look at this, those are very similar to what we saw on Realtor.com with the values of homes. And I pulled one up that's $1.25 million. And I looked at the rent zestimate, and it's $7,900. Do I need to spend any more time? No, I know that's not going to work. Let's go to this next one. This gets even better. I'm looking at the house for $1.25 million. What you can do on Realtor.com and on Zillow is you put in the amount that you think you want to put down. What we recommend is to make your numbers work with 20% down. Even if you say, Karen, I'm going to pay cash, that's great, but I want you to run the numbers as if you were putting 20% down, because your cash on cash return is a very important metric. So with this, put the numbers in, and I ran it, and look at that. It gave me an estimated payment amount of $9,089. How much was my rent? $7,800 or $7,900. That is another thing you can quickly say, oh my gosh, am I moving ahead or am I going backwards? Right, you're going backwards. You see how easy that is to locate that information? Now I want to show you a property that works. This is actually one of our properties. When we first started investing, remember I told you we didn't have much money, right? So we needed to find a market. We were living in South Lake, and I certainly didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket there, and it wasn't looking good. So what we started doing is we started looking around a radius. So some of you might be in very expensive markets, and don't be discouraged. You can buy in other markets, and one of the things we recommend you do is start looking at smaller communities, even around that 100,000, 200,000 mark. So we're in Dallas, so my son, Levi, who's an amazing researcher, my little millennial there, so he started looking around, and he started going down around Waco, Texas. And noticed that the prices down in that area were considerably less. In Colorado, what a lot of people were doing, although it's been catching up, is they would go down to Pueblo because they were in Denver. Denver got too high, moved to Colorado Springs for investors. If Colorado Springs got too high, started moving out. And those are really, really great types of communities to get started. So we actually looked in Waco, and it just wasn't for us. And he started to look a little further, and he found this town called McGregor, Texas. Any of you from Texas? Okay, what's in McGregor, Texas? Anybody? It's actually SpaceX. Okay, so he started looking into McGregor, and the numbers were good. We could buy houses in 130s, 140s. And then when we did what I showed you to do on rent, there was nothing there. Oh, is that good? It is, because that means that there is more demand than there is supply. So we did the research here, looked at the rent estimates, looked at what we could find that would actually, what it would rent for, and we made a good contact down there. He was a builder, and I said, hey, what do we need to do to rent a house? Rent out a house. And he goes, just stick a sign in the front yard. And I was like, that's my market, right? I can get in low, and I know that there's going to be good demand. So look at things too, and I'll recap this at the end a bit. When you look into a market, if you can find indicators that it is a flourishing market and growth is coming, and you get in early, that is really going to serve you well in the long run. So with this one, we knew there was SpaceX. Another thing that we found out is that they actually had plans with the city that they're going to build an automotive plant. All good things, right? And there was a shortage of rent. So this is a property that we picked up, and it's just it was a 3-1, which is, perfect. because it's between that 2 to 4 times median income. I'll show you all the ratios. And my son found this, and it was redone. It was actually a really nice redo. And so we went under contract on it, and it had a ton of title issues. So that's something that you will run into, but we knew like, hey, that's got to get cleared up. And it really served us well because they couldn't close for about 3 months that they were trying to clear up the title issues. We locked in our purchase price, and it had appreciated by the time we closed. So that was a real blessing. So let's look at this. The off-market value on this property, because we had closed on it, it has it listed at $186,100. What's that rent Zestimate? $2,295. How does that look to you? Good, right? Really good. Now, the rent Zestimates, that it was actually too high, but I didn't need to know the exact price at this time. I just knew that this had all the properties that worked with those 4 guidelines. So as we go down, we look at the rent estimate of $2,295. Remember, what's a cash flow we're looking for? $300 or more. Now I can look at what that payment would be, and it's $1,149. How does our cash flow look? Good. So when you see something like this, you want to go in deeper and learn more. Okay, so these are the actual results of that property. I want to take you through, and I want to show you how to run those ratios and what they look like. Now, we had actually got this house for $144,000. We put in a fence addition. We added a refrigerator, an island, a stove. So my cash in after closing for improvements of the property is $10,000. You want to keep track of that because that needs to be figured into your calculation for the cash-on-cash return, okay? So when you go and you look at a property, I'm doing vacation rentals later, which we completely redo, and I'll give you a lot more details on this. But you look at the property beforehand and determine how much you're going to put into it and run those numbers. And if you're putting too much into it, you try to get to that sweet spot that fits in the ratios. So in addition to that, we put 20% down on this property, $28,800. So our total cash in was $38,800. Now we put this out on the market. We usually go into a market and we go low. The 2200s estimate was too high. But where we went, because we wanted to get it rented fast to a quality renter, is we rented it out at $1,590 a month, okay? Our mortgage payment was $726. How's that cash flow look? Great. Am I going to care if the value of that property goes down? No, because it's going to come back up, but I am situated with cash flow. My first year cash-on-cash return is $8,400 based on that cash flow. Now let's take a look at that cash-on-cash return ratio and see how we did there. So I took $8,400, which is our cash flow, and divided it by the amount we put in, which is $38,800. And how's my cash-on-cash return look? Great. All right, got that one too. So we're doing really well here. The next thing I looked at is $144,000 purchase price, the $1,590 rent. We're at 1.1%. Good? Good. And then that median income in McGregor was $58,514. And if I times that times 3, it's at $175,000. Am I in that bracket? Yes. And then I times it times 4, And it tells me that I could actually go up to 234 in that market and I could stay in that sweet spot. So this is an example of a property that nailed all 4 of the criteria that we've been talking about. So we went on to buy 3 more properties in that area, and it cash flowed. They did really well. One of them was the flip that I told you about, that we decided to flip. That was that miracle, right? That was that dream. And I'll just tell you, we sold that house at $425,000. So it was beautiful. But when you're in a market like this, I was pushing it. And I wouldn't advise you to do that. But here's the thing. I've got my 30-year-old son is our money guy. So I fall in love with properties because I'm a designer and I want to make them gorgeous, right? And so my son Levi is like, Mom, look at the numbers. I don't think that's a good idea. So I was like, I don't like that answer. Let me go over here. Dave, I'd really like to do this to make it beautiful. Oh, sweetheart, you can do anything. So I have learned not to do that. That's why I say don't do that. But God totally blessed us in that transaction, and it was in this market. All right. So actual results, I just pointed out those 4 points. I already went over them. But the net cash flow over 300, cash on cash return over 10%. The 1%, we are over 1%. You can be close in an environment where interest rates are low. You actually can get by with less than 1%. And we run the alternative rent ratios. And then I was within my median income, which was awesome. All right, so what can you do to gain an edge in your market? Once you step into this, you find a property. These are some things that you look for the gap in the market. What I mean by that is for this one, as I started to look at the listings and the rentals, they looked horrible, like bad. Meaning that people moved out, they barely cleaned them. Even with the purchases like the flips, people just didn't do a good job of presenting their property. So that was something that I felt with my background with the staging. We know how to take photos, make a property beautiful. I knew that I could go into this market, so it wasn't a complete risk, as I kind of just shared with you. I actually knew that there was nothing else in this market that was going to look like my property. And it was growing, and it was attracting high-level people because of SpaceX. You want to find the right property manager. Generally, there's property managers that are well-connected, and if you don't live there, you're going to rely on them a lot, okay? We were about 2 hours away. And then I like to look at the long-term appreciation opportunity. Do you think SpaceX is probably going to grow? Yes. And so when I looked at McGregor, even though we were at lower prices, I knew that those prices were going to start to escalate because of the businesses and that SpaceX being such a hot thing that's happening. All right, I am not going to talk about vacation rentals because I have a whole session on that. So we'll be going through that. And this is just something I wanted to show you. When you Google like median household income, you can see in South Lake, the median household income was actually $223,000. That's why the houses were so high. So that was a little bit too rich for us at the time. Okay, let's talk about how to run your positive cash flow. So your first high-level number is the total monthly rent. So you take your monthly rent minus expenses, which you all know is your monthly cash flow. Here's some things you want to take into consideration. You want to do your principal and interest, put that in there. You want to do your homeowner's insurance, make sure that's in there. Then you want to look at HOA fees. One of the questions that I get a lot from people is it a good buy to buy a condo? Okay? Sometimes it is, but that HOA is very important to look at. And so I know I'm going to just talk about this a bit before I finish, but this is really important for you. When you look at a home with an HOA, how many of you have HOAs on your property? Do they limit the way you can use your home? Absolutely. How do they like vacation rentals, for example? They don't, right? Sometimes they don't even like you to rent it out. So as beautiful as a home might seem, you need to lift up the lid, look under the cover, and see what's going on in there. I'm going to share a story when I was back in Minnesota of something that happened when we moved out to Karis. We had a beautiful executive home in Minnetonka, Minnesota. Any Minnesotans? Yoo-hoo! And when we were called to Karis, it was like one of those things I knew, like, hey, we need to go. I was just propelled. And so we really were blessed. It was in the downturn of the market. And so there's a lot of renters out there that are high quality because the interest rates were high and they actually preferred to rent rather than to buy. So I got an amazing renter. They were in there for like 3 years. And then all at once, the interest rates started to dip really low. What do people do when the interest rates drop that are renters? They buy. So my amazing renters decided to buy a house, and I put it back on the market for a renter. But what I didn't understand is that there are seasons and cycles in the rental market. So I was out here. I was a single mom. My payment was over $4,000. And I was working here. I was working overnight staging property. I mean, it was crazy. And it even got to the point where my dad said, Karen, you should just let the house go. And I was like, Dad, he's a banker, you know. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to believe God. Well, I got a renter in there, but the problem was they were not a good quality renter. Okay, and that's why you need a good property manager, but that's also why I'm sharing this with you, because you want to be able to have multiple exit strategies. So thankfully, where I was did not have an HOA, but a friend of mine purchased a property here in Woodland Park, didn't look close enough into the HOA, didn't understand the culture against renting for the HOA. They ended up with an $800,000 home that they were going to rent out to Karis students, only to find out they couldn't. The HOA documents did not prohibit it on the front end, but the attitude towards that and the culture, and I'll share a lot on this with vacation rentals, was poor. So they ended up actually selling that home. Okay, so go back. I rented it. It didn't make all the payments, but it was close, and it gave me a lot of relief. However, when I went back to Minnesota and the renter was leaving, my house was trashed. So I had to redo the whole thing, which was fun. I enjoyed that. But where I'm getting to with this story is that I didn't even know that I had done something right in buying this house. And what I learned is that the area that I was in was a rockin' vacation rental area. So I switched strategies and I put that property out on vacation rental. And within the first year, we were grossing close to $100,000 and gaining momentum. Now, if I had an HOA going in, I would not have been able to do that. So that's why I'm saying with HOAs, you really need to be careful because you could limit your exit strategies. And I would prefer to be able to maneuver in a market to the highest and best for that property. Okay? Condominiums, I'll just share with you as well. When you have an HOA there, usually it's a larger dollar amount. And there's a couple things you need to look for. One, is there any special assessments that are going to be coming up or are currently on the property? And second, what kind of shape is that HOA in? Because if the HOA is in poor financial shape and they need money, what's going to happen to your HOA fee? It's going to go up, right? So just a little caution there. I'm not saying don't buy in an HOA. I just want you to be aware of some of the limitations. Okay, so you would deduct that, your property management fee, which is usually 8 to 10%. Vacation rentals are much higher. Your real estate taxes and any other expenses that you are covering. All right, so I want you to think about, where is your market? And these are 9 things to consider that go beyond the numbers. The numbers are important, but there's more to buying real estate than just numbers. For example, I mentioned to you that we've got most all of our properties in Cocoa Beach and in Vero Beach. You might say, why Cocoa Beach? Well, after my husband died, my son and I would go down there and he would learn to surf. And I'm telling you, that town and that beach ministered to me. And we would dream, wow, one day, can you imagine, could we ever buy a property here? And at that time, remember that low level? I was showing you my red arrow. I had no capacity to think that I could ever do something like that. If I would have had a class like this, if I would have been at a workshop in a conference like this, I would have seen something different. But I had to give God a new wineskin. So when we started looking in Florida, Levi's a surfer, he really wanted to live there. We started mapping out how we might make this work. And when you take that step forward, just like you're doing now, do you know what? If you do nothing but research properties tonight, you have taken a step forward. You have touched your dream. I wouldn't even think about opening up a Realtor.com app at that time because I did not think we could ever do it. So now you're starting to look, you're taking that step. And as we started to see that it was possible, we purchased our first property down there, and Levi was able to move down there and live full time. It's a story I'll get into one of my other workshops. It's actually a really beautiful process that we went through that I think could help you. But once we got down there and we saw the possibility, then we just started seeing more and more possibility. And I don't understand it, but somehow after taking that first step, it's like God multiplied our money. He brought us the right people, and we were able to establish this family business down there that Levi and Carly run for us. And quickly after that, he met his wife, Carly Hartman. Do you know Butch and Julianne Hartman? So we've been friends with them for like a long time, and our kids connected. We didn't set them up, although we would have liked to. They connected, and now as a whole family, we are all investing down there. We love it there. It's a place we feel peaceful, and now our kids are living there as well. So I'm going to finish up with this just to give you some things to ponder. Where is your market? Find a price point that you're comfortable with. We could have, I don't think we could have done South Lake, but if we did, I would have put all our little eggs in one basket, and I was already like trying to be confident, right? So the last thing was to blow all our savings of a lifetime into one property. We couldn't do that. Maybe you are braver than we were. The ability to work toward the real estate designation. So this is something we'll talk about more in the other places as well. But I'm telling you, if you get your real estate designation, which you can do really, really fast with flips and vacation rentals, you have almost unlimited write-offs. So if any of you have a tax liability that you're trying to reduce, have I got a plan for you? Where's a growth pattern in the nearest city? So you look at that, and that's how we ended up in McGregor. Opportunity to make an impact in a community. We have the kingdom of God in us. Anywhere we go, we bring his light. So it was very important to us, and I know it is for all of you too, that you can make a positive impact in the area that you are called to. We wanted to find that opportunity to bring things to the market that are not being done. As I explained to you, boy, was there a hole in the market. There is in Cocoa Beach actually too. Home staging, professional photos, marketing, general beautification of the home. Where's the gap? In our vacation rentals, I'll show you some of the pictures of those in the later one. I found the gap in Cocoa Beach because most of the vacation rentals have one pink wall, one turquoise wall, mermaids on the wall. They just overdo it. And when I look at that, that is not restful. So I said, I found my gap. I found it. Okay, find a team, property manager, builder to work with, to help with new builds, help remodel. A local team helps a lot. And then the question, do we like spending time there? Okay, my time is up, but I want to share something really quick with you. I have a little trick when you start going into a market. You have to work hard. Do you know that? I have funny pictures of Dave and Levi dangling their feet from the attic in a blizzard snowstorm in Texas. How many of you know that Texans cannot drive in the winter? On top of that, we were hauling a refrigerator. I'm just saying it was bad. And we had some times, and we do in Cocoa Beach too, we run into rough spots, that gets tough. We're doing a lot of work. But I created this little trick that I think the Holy Spirit showed me. Whenever we go to a place, I definitely get there on the ground to see how it feels. And then I create end of day amazing experiences anytime that we're working on a property. I'm a little bit of a foodie, I've kind of figured out. So what I would do is I would schedule a time. We would always go to a special restaurant at the end of the day. And I do that in Cocoa Beach as well. If we work, we're dirty, whatever, we're going to a nice restaurant. So yours might be something different. But I just want to encourage you, when you choose a place to stay, create memories that give you good feelings at the end of the day, and it will melt away the problems that you run into. So that was not a great day for us to get that refrigerator figured out, the guys in the attic trying to figure an electrical problem. But when we look back at our time in McGregor, it is nothing but amazing because we created those experiences. You can do that for yourself. You can do that for your family. And I'm telling you, it keeps you together. It keeps you from being discouraged. And that's what we always do, so that anytime we've got a big project, we're going to work our butts off, you might say, but we reward ourselves at the end of the day, and we look back and say that was an amazing, wonderful experience. So thank you so much, you guys. I do want to share something with you. I've got a freebie for you. This is a mini book actually by Billy. It's a free ebook that is top 10 secrets of real estate financing, how to grow your portfolio faster. Financing, we'll go more into this, is critical. You are not going to be able to buy a property until you get this figured out. So I would encourage you, go ahead and download that mini book. Also, we have got a real estate workshop coming up called Possess Your Land. Colin does those workshops with us, Bill Bronchek, Billy, Becky, me. We've got a whole team. We've got coaches, which will be in some of our sessions as well, that are there. We have very limited tickets available for this. This is in Denver. There's $100 off, so you can use that QR code and put in the code NXT for your in-person ticket. If you join us by live stream, it's NXT Live. If you go to that workshop, I assure you that you will learn so much in that period of time that new wineskin is going to present itself to you. So if you're interested in real estate, I really would encourage you to be a part of it. It's going to help you a lot. All right, you guys, you did good. I don't think anybody fell asleep out there, even after an amazing meal. Thanks so much for joining me today. God bless. Have a great rest of your afternoon.